Missing someone, love with all your heart. Missing someone, love with heart.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So I have a new client here who is wanting to do a transformation, which are totally my favorite. So her goal today is to be like a deep, vibrant red, and she has a balayage that's been growing out for probably over a year now. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on breaking up her roots. You can see her roots are super grown out. So we're going to work on blending out her roots so that she has something low maintenance but has full color all the way to the scalp. So let's get started. So prior to her color service, I did trim up her ends, and then I will always finish my haircut after the hair color, but I like to do most of it done before the hair color, just so that I know I'm not cutting off all the beautiful color that I just put in the hair. So I am going to start off with detailing her hairline, and there I did do a weave, and I'm going to continue just doing a weave on the other side as well, just so that when she puts her hair up, everything is colored and nice and beautiful. So today we're going to do a standard highlighting technique that I like to do on most of my clients nowadays. So I am just taking slices back to back up her head. One of the things that I actually noticed while highlighting the back of her head was she hasn't gotten like a full highlight in a really long time. You'll see after, I believe after this highlight, everything from there on till the top part of her head, it just really wasn't highlighted in the back here, and that's okay. I mean, some clients who want something low maintenance, I technically wouldn't highlight them all the way back. Sometimes they get partials and then maybe just do a full once a year. It honestly just depends on the client and the look that they're going for and the maintenance that they want to do and upkeep. So she was definitely due for a full. You can see that whole section right there is pretty much all dark, and she said that she did notice it. So it was good that we were doing a full here so that she could feel like she had a lot of color, especially if she puts her hair up half up, half down. Or even if she just curls her hair, she won't have this like huge black hole in the back here. So the products that I'm using, that first bowl is going to be a mixture of 6 volume and 20 volume, and I mix that with the Blonde Me powder, which is the Blonde Me bleach, and I do that 1 to 2 with developer. And that kind of gives me like a really good consistency to where it's not too thick but not too runny at all either, and it gives me a really good lift as well. Usually at this point is where I'll kind of switch it up and just use 20 volume for the rest of the head. This way everything is kind of caught up in the back and kind of starts to lift a little evenly. But of course I do double check and just make sure that if anything is ready to be rinsed, I do rinse that accordingly. So the spacing in the back here, I wanted to keep her more on the dimensional side, so I didn't want to over highlight the back or give her too much of a heavy highlight. I did ask her if she liked the way that her hair was blended last time, and she said that she did. So that's a really good indication if client is new and has previous highlights and you've never highlighted their hair before. It gives you a good gauge whether or not you need to highlight more than the last person or do the same or even highlight less, because sometimes you'll come across like a client who was highlighted super heavy and they come in feeling super solid, They don't love their color because the grow out was too harsh. So I always ask my clients before I begin so that it gives me a really good idea of what my game plan is going to be for their hair. So my standard of something that is going to grow out nice and soft, very similar to what she previously had. The spacing on my slices in the very back will go from 1/2 inch and then gradually go up 1/4 inch as I get closer towards the top. And I like to do that gradually because I like the bottom to be a little bit darker, have a little bit more depth and low light, and then gradually get a little bit lighter as we get towards the top and even closer to the hairline. And by leaving that much spacing in between my slices, I'm able to give her something that is going to grow out really soft. So if in the future she does decide to go this long again, it won't look super crazy and it will grow out really soft against her natural hair color. So as I'm slicing her head as well, I am trying to be very careful with the previous highlights that she has. So by doing so, I definitely like to pick out any previous blonde that's on that mids and ends and really just carefully paint on the pieces that are her natural hair. And then I'll continue this center section all the way up to the top part of her head. And then once I get really close to the money piece, I will have them turn it over and I will start doing the money piece that way. And prior to doing any type of money piece, I always will ask my clients, like, do you mind having your money piece or the front a little bit lighter? And usually a client will know what that means, and if in the case that they don't, you could always like show them pictures as a reference, because pictures are great. Sometimes if you say, oh, do you want like a thick money piece, their version of thick might not be as thick as yours. So if they're really unsure or not very familiar with the term, it's really important to show them visually what would look good. And then a lot of times, sometimes clients are like, oh, I don't know, like just do whatever you recommend. And in that case, if a client is really unsure, even after showing pictures, I will do by default just like a very subtle natural money piece. And my classic go-to for a natural money piece is I will do a baby light and then a slice and then another baby light. But in this case, this client did say that she wanted the front to be a little bit lighter. And honestly, since her roots are so long here, that would probably look better, because if I didn't really do a heavy money piece here, she might feel a little too dimensional and dark since her roots are so long. So it was a pretty good call that she was like, yeah, I do want the front a little bit lighter. So for that, I am doing 2 slices back to back. And then I will continue like my normal slicing pattern. And this is going to give her some solid color right in the front. And it's not going to look too chunky or anything compared to what we've been doing, because my sections that are going to be right behind this as I slice is really not that dimensional. It does get a little bit closer together. So I would say that it does give a good transition and blend. So as I begin the sides here, that very first foil was a slice, and then after that I'm going to be just doing a weave, and I'm going to just weave around the hairline to give a very soft transition and highlight around the hairline again, so that when she puts her hair up, everything looks nice and colored and pretty. And then once I'm done detailing the hairline, I'm just going to continue pretty much that slicing pattern up the side, where this is where I start to connect that front hairline to that middle section in the back. And again, for this part, you want to be very careful not to overlap on any previous lightened hair. And then also I like to lay my foils flat wherever the lightener is. So there you can see that dark piece is longer, so I am using a longer foil for that, so that I don't bend the foil where there is lightener. I find that if you do bend the hair where the lightener is on the foil, especially on dark hair, if it's like medium to coarse hair, I tend to get an uneven lift personally. So I just don't like to bend the foil when I'm working and lifting any type of hair unless it's like super fine. So this is me pulling out that first round of foils for my client. So for our goal, since we're doing a deeper red, in our consultation, I did ask my client, since she seemed to like the way that her hair had faded out, like that was just the vibe that I got from her. So I asked her, and usually like a lot of clients nowadays are asking to go red, and a lot of them don't understand that if they use like a permanent color, or if we use like a demi-permanent color, the red can fade orange, and then it's really hard to go back to blonde. So I explained that to her, and then asked her if she would be okay with doing a red created with a semi-permanent, which would fade back to blonde. The only thing with doing a red with the semi-permanent is that, one, it'll appear a lot brighter. It will fade a bit faster in my opinion, and will bleed a little bit more. But the positives to that is that it will fade back to blonde, and once it's fully out, you can change your mind and do a different color. So that's really great for clients who want to try out red or hop on the dark, deep red trend safely, to where they can change their hair color later. Alrighty, so here's my client. I blow dried her, lifted her to a beautiful level 9 and 10, and you can see I put a cape on the floor there just because this is a really vibrant deep red. You can see I mixed up pyro and bloodshot equal parts, and so because it's such a bright red, I wanted to be extra careful and considerate to my salon. So I put a little cape on the floor just to catch any like color that would fly, because oftentimes when I do semi-permanent colors like these, or just any color in general, I work so fast and the color really does fly, and I'm always so sorry. So I try to take extra precaution and just like make sure that the cape is over the chair and that the cape is on the floor, and I have extra towels just in case any color flies. But yeah, just a small little tip for you guys if you're doing creative color and you're tired of having so many color stains on the floor. So for this color, I'm just going to apply it all over her hair, and going back to what I said, explaining to my client the differences of the fade between using a semi-permanent like this and using like a demi-permanent or even just permanent color for the red was really important, because oftentimes I feel like people will just kind of gravitate towards using like a demi-permanent because they might feel that it will last a little bit longer. But sometimes a client might not be ready to be fully committed to being toned that way, because essentially if I were to tone her with like, let's say a level 7 copper or even a red or level 6 red, similar to the color that we're doing right now, she probably would have a difficult time going back to blonde. And a lot of times that color removing session or just lightening can be a little bit damaging, so I found that this would be the safest way. And yeah, I find that it becomes really helpful when you ask your client what their goal is and whatnot to help you decide what colors you will use. But I think it's really cool that Pulbright came out with Bloodshot, which is part of the new shadow collection. It's like a really deep red, and I feel like it's definitely game changing in these fall tones, because I'm able to create like a really deep color with lots of depth that you normally feel like a semi wouldn't be able to achieve on its own, and you might need to use like an extra like demi-toner to help with the depth of it. But I feel like Bloodshot did such a good job, and yeah, I just loved using that with Pyro, which is also my other favorite semi color, which is like the deep vibrant red out of all the reds in the semi line. Alrighty guys, so here is my after. You can see how beautiful and vibrant this color is. I feel like Bloodshot gave the perfect amount of depth to Pyro, because Pyro on its own is a beautiful red anyways, but sometimes Pyro or even Fireball can be a little too bright and kind of like fire truck red. I feel like Bloodshot gave it that oomph to where it was like a beautiful wine red, and that is exactly what we were going for, and my client absolutely loved her hair. And as this fades out, guys, I have a feeling this is going to fade out more on the pinky side for her. Again, I do let my clients know that all colors fade a little bit differently on everybody, so I give them like an expectation that it might fade from this to that, and for her I expected that this would fade more on the pinky side and slightly beigey before it gets totally back to blonde. Alrighty guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in. I hope you guys learned something new, and as always, I will talk to you guys next week.